Hello everyone, welcome back. Let me start with a question. If you or a loved one were diagnosed with cancer, what is the very first piece of dietary advice you would receive? 9 out of 10 times, someone will tell you with absolute certainty, stop eating sugar immediately. Sugar feeds cancer. It is literally fertilizer for tumor cells. This sounds perfectly logical, right? In fact, many cancer patients try extreme zero-carb or sugar starvation diets out of fear. They consume nothing but water and a few green leaves. Yet instead of shrinking the tumor, they become dangerously emaciated. Today, we will dissect this century-old medical myth through two distinct lenses: modern biochemistry and traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. First, let's use an analogy. Imagine your body is a bustling metropolis. From your beating heart to your thinking brain, every single cell requires a baseline energy source to function: electricity. In the human body, that electricity is glucose. Technically speaking, saying sugar feeds cancer isn't entirely wrong. Cancer cells are citizens of this metropolis too. Even though they are criminals, they still need electricity to survive. But here is the question. Just because criminals are using the power grid, are you going to shut down the entire city's central circuit breaker? If you pull that lever, the criminals might not starve to death, but the innocent citizens, your immune cells fighting viruses, your lung cells managing respiration, your brain cells processing thought, will collapse from sudden blackout. Therefore, blindly starving yourself of carbohydrates is not fighting cancer. It is a form of indiscriminate self-harm. Where did this deeply rooted cultural myth come from? It traces back to a groundbreaking discovery made by Western science a century ago. In the 1920s, Nobel laureate Otto Warburg discovered that cancer cells have a fundamentally altered appetite compared to healthy cells. Normal cells break down sugar with high efficiency using oxygen, squeezing out a massive amount of energy. Cancer cells, however, behave like voracious, hyperactive beasts. Even when surrounded by plenty of oxygen, they bypass this efficient pathway and opt for a wasteful but blindingly fast method of energy extraction: aerobic glycolysis, clinically known as the Warburg effect. Cancer cells act like glucose magnets, not just because they are hungry, but because as they rapidly divide, they desperately need building blocks. They hijack glucose, dismantle it, and use its carbon fragments to synthesize DNA, proteins, and cellular membranes for new cancer cells. Proponents of the starve cancer theory often point to hospital PET scans as definitive proof. They say, look, when doctors inject radioactive glucose, the tumor lights up like a neon sign. Doesn't that prove tumors love sugar? But they miss a crucial detail. Look closely at that PET scan. Aside from the tumor, what other organ is shining brilliantly? It's your brain. Your brain accounts for only 2% of your body weight, yet it consumes 20% of your body's daily glucose supply. A PET scan doesn't prove that sugar is inherently evil. It proves that glucose is the non-negotiable foundation of human survival. Furthermore, evolutionary biology has given us a bulletproof defense mechanism. Even if you eat zero carbohydrates, your liver will immediately trigger gluconeogenesis. It will break down your own muscles and fat stores to manufacture glucose from scratch just to keep your brain alive. As a result, while you think you are starving the tumor, it continues to siphon off the glucose manufactured by your liver while your muscle mass literally melts away. In clinical reality, nearly 40% of cancer patients ultimately pass away, not from the tumor itself, but from severe malnutrition and systemic wasting known as cachexia. Does this mean cancer patients can throw caution to the wind and indulge in unlimited sweets, milk, tea, and cakes? Absolutely not. Centuries ago, ancient Chinese medicine explained how to handle sugar using a macroeconomic systems biology approach. While traditional text lacks modern terms like glucose or molecular pathways, TCM's understanding of tumor metabolism directly correlates to the tangible physical symptoms patients experience in the clinic. In TCM, a tumor's hypermetabolic state, its voracious plundering of nutrients, is identified as a core failure of the spleen's function to distribute essence, leading to the internal accumulation of cancerous turbidity. TCM states that the spleen governs transportation, transformation, and the distribution of essence. This essence represents the core nutrients derived from the food we digest, precisely what modern medicine defines as glucose and metabolic energy. In a healthy individual, a robust spleen acts like an expert logistics dispatch center. It distributes refined nutrients, essence, throughout the entire body to nourish the limbs and fortify the immune system. However, when cancer develops or when a person suffers from chronic stress and fatigue, this logistics network collapses. This is what TCM calls spleen deficiency and liver qi stagnation. Unable to be distributed normally, these nutrient essences accumulate in a localized area, transforming into a pathological byproduct called cancerous turbidity. What exactly is this spleen transportation and transformation system when translated into modern scientific language? It is definitely not the anatomical spleen organ alone. Instead, it represents a complex neuroendocrine-immune-metabolic network spanning the gastrointestinal, circulatory, and endocrine systems. When we ingest carbohydrates, the gut breaks them down, transportation. Glucose then enters the liver via the portal vein for processing and is subsequently channeled through the vascular network under insulin guidance to fuel the brain, muscles, and immune organs, transformation and distribution. Modern oncology shows that advanced cancer or prolonged emotional distress paralyzes this regulatory network through autonomic nervous dysfunction and gut barrier breakdown. Clinically, this systemic breakdown manifests as a distinct cluster of symptoms. Gastrointestinal shutdown. Patients suffer from severe anorexia, experiencing nausea at the mere smell of meat or grease. They endure profound abdominal distension even after minimal food, accompanied by loose, watery stools due to a drastic drop in digestive enzyme secretion and gastrointestinal motility. Systemic wasting. Because nutrients fail to reach healthy tissues, patients experience rapid weight loss and muscle atrophy, matching the TCM principle that the spleen governs the muscles. They suffer from unremitting cancer-related fatigue and a dull, sallow complexion. Fluid accumulation. The classic complications of advanced cancer ascites, pleural effusion, and lower extremity edema reflect the spleen's inability to manage fluids. Clinically, this presents as a swollen tongue with distinct teeth marks on the margins and a thick, greasy coating, signaling a massive accumulation of metabolic waste like lactate. Modern science reveals that while healthy T cells and NK cells are starving in this metabolic swamp, the unmanaged glucose pools locally, fueling the tumor's glycolysis. TCM remedies like Liu Junzi decoction or Shenling Baiju powder do not feed the tumor. Instead, pharmacology proves they regulate autonomic nerves, protect the gut mucosa, and repair mitochondrial damage in healthy cells. This restores the healthy cell's ability to compete for glucose, reclaiming energy for the immune system. Beyond digestive failure, cancer patients often endure a persistent, boring pain that resists standard analgesics. In Western medicine, this is chronic cancer pain. In TCM, it is diagnosed as blood stasis blocking the collaterals. Modern tumor biology reveals that as a tumor grows aggressively, it stimulates rapid angiogenesis. However, these newly formed vessels are structurally defective, leaky, tortuous, and prone to occlusion. This leads to sluggish blood flow, microthrombosis, and a state of severe local hypoxia and hypercoagulability. This is the exact definition of blood stasis blocking the collaterals. When this stasis occurs, its clinical manifestations are highly specific and severe. Fixed, sharp pain, matching the TCM maxim. No flow causes pain. This manifests as a fixed, sharp stabbing or knife-like pain directly over the tumor or metastatic site, highly tender to the touch. It exhibits a hallmark nocturnal worsening, flaring up past midnight when systemic blood flow naturally slows down, disrupting sleep. Cutaneous alterations. The patient's complexion becomes dark, dull, and soot-like, accompanied by severely dry, scaly, fish skin-like texture, indicating localized microcirculatory failure. The diagnostic gold standard, the tongue. Looking beneath the patient's tongue reveals a dark purple tongue body with distinct purple stria or ecchymosis on the margins. Most visibly, the sublingual veins are engorged, tortuous, and dark purple-black. This is the literal macro visualization of systemic hypercoagulability. The critical link to our sugar topic is this. Modern oncology proves that this exact blood stasis-induced hypoxia activates a master molecular switch inside cancer cells called HIF-1-alpha, hypoxia-inducible factor 1-alpha. When HIF-1-alpha flips on, it commands the cancer cell to accelerate its aerobic glycolysis up to 100-fold. Because it is suffocating, it must violently hijack blood glucose at warp speed just to generate survival energy. When clinicians introduce TCM blood-activating herbs like hirudo, water leech, curcume rhizoma, xanthoxylum/zidori, or curcumin, modern pharmacology demonstrates that they reduce blood viscosity, inhibit microthrombi, and lower vascular resistance. In plain terms, they pump oxygen back into the tumor bed. By resolving blood stasis and restoring oxygenation, the molecular switch, HIF-1-alpha, is forced off. Consequently, the tumor's frantic glucose consumption drops off a cliff. TCM utilizes blood activation to physically and biochemically dismantle the acidic hypoxic swamp that tumors rely on. Furthermore, extensive laboratory research confirms that specific herbal compounds act as targeted brakes on tumor metabolism. For instance, the active extract from Paris polyphylla directly blocks GLUT1, glucose transporter 1, and hexokinase on cancer cell membranes. This effectively cuts the tumor's dedicated power lines, forcing its glycolysis rate downward. Similarly, the classic formulation Zuorgin pill has been proven to significantly decelerate glycolysis in gastric cancer cells. As we can see, whether through the lens of microsignaling pathways or macrotransportation theories, glucose itself is not the villain. However, this does not mean we should consume refined sugars without restraint. From an epidemiological perspective, the chronic overconsumption of high glycemic refined sugar is a definitive indirect catalyst for cancer. When you flood your system with sugary beverages, milk teas, and pastries, your pancreas must work overtime, leading to chronic insulin resistance. This maintains elevated levels of insulin and IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, in your bloodstream. In medicine, these two hormones are known as cellular gas pedals. They constantly broadcast a faulty message to cells: grow, divide, and resist death. This directly promotes the proliferation of mutated cells. Simultaneously, excess sugar converts into visceral fat, transforming adipose tissue into an active endocrine organ that secretes inflammatory cytokines. Modern medicine has firmly established that chronic low-grade systemic inflammation is a proven driver of at least 13 types of cancer. So how should we eat? The golden rule is simple: distinguish between good carbs and bad sugars. The sugars to eliminate: soft drinks, commercial milk teas, white sugar, candies, and highly processed pastries. These cause violent blood glucose spikes, triggering systemic inflammation and insulin surges. The carbohydrates to embrace: complex carbohydrates derived from whole grains, like brown rice, oats, fibrous vegetables, and low-sugar fruits. In TCM, these foods optimally fortify the spleen and stomach. In Western nutrition, their high-fiber content ensures a slow, stable release of glucose, providing clean energy to fuel your body's healthy defense systems. When facing cancer, fear can often be more debilitating than the disease itself. Many pervasive myths prey directly on our vulnerability during a health crisis. As we have explored today, cancer is a complex, systemic metabolic disease. Trying to starve it through extreme deprivation or zero-carb fasting is a dangerous gamble that usually compromises your own immune system long before it affects the tumor. The ultimate cancer care strategy lies in the harmonious integration of Western rationality and Eastern wisdom. Follow precise clinical interventions under your oncologist's guidance while using TCM to fortify the spleen, to optimize nutrient flow, and activate blood to clear vascular obstructions. By managing real physical symptoms, you rebuild your body's metabolic network and microcirculation. Ensure that every ounce of nutrition you consume goes toward building lean muscle and armoring your immune cells rather than fueling the enemy's camp. Stay rational, maintain a balanced diet, and protect your spleen-stomach health. Your body's internal resilience is your most powerful medicine. Thank you for watching. If this video helped clarify your doubts, please like, subscribe, and share it with those in need. I will see you in the next video.